but he could feel the weight of the raindrops that sparkled on his ginger fur. He heard his owners giving him one last call from the back door. If he went to them now, they would greet him with gentle words and caress and welcome him into their bed, where he would curl, purring, warm in the crook of a bent knee. But this time Rusty ignored his owner's voices and turned his gaze back to the forest. The crisp smell of the woods had grown fresher after the rain. Suddenly, the fur on his spine prickled. Something was moving out there. Was something watching him? Rusty stared ahead, but it was impossible to see or smell anything in the dark tree-scented air. He lifted his chin boldly, stood up and stretched, one paw gripping each corner of the fence post as he straightened his legs and arched his back. He closed his eyes and breathed in the smell of the woods once more. It seemed to promise him something, tempting him onward into the whispering shadows. The tensing his muscles, he crouched for a moment. Then he leaped lightly down on the rough grass on the other side of the garden fence. As he landed, the bell on his collar rang out through the still night air. "Where are you off to, Rusty?" meowed a familiar voice behind him. Rusty looked up. A young black and white cat was balancing ungratefully on the fence. "Hello, Smudge." "You're not going out into the woods, are you?" Smudge's amber eyes were huge. "Just for a look," Rusty promised, shifting uncomfortably. "You wouldn't get me out there. It's dangerous." Smudge wrinkled his black nose in distaste. "Henry said he went into the woods once." The cat lifted his head and gestured with his nose over the rows of fences towards the garden where Henry lived. "That fat old tabby would never went into the woods," Rusty scoffed. He's hardly been beyond his own garden since his trip to the vet. All he wants to do is eat and sleep." "No, really, he caught a robin there," Smudge insisted. "Well, if he did, then it was before the vet. Now he complains about birds because they disturb his dozing. Well, anyway," Smudge went on, ignoring the scorn in Rusty's meow, "Henry told me there was all sorts of dangerous animals out there. Huge wildcats who eat live rabbits for breakfast and sharpen their claws on old bones." "I'm only going to look for a look around," Rusty meowed. "I won't stay long." "Well, I don't say I didn't warn you." The black cat turned and plunged off the fence, back into his own garden. Rusty sat down in the coarse grass behind the garden fence. He gave his shoulder a nervous lick and wondered how much Smudge's gossip was true. Suddenly, the movement of a tiny creature caught his eye. He watched it struggle underneath some branches. Instinct made him drop into a low crouch. With one slow paw after another, he drew his body forward through the undergrowth. Ears pricked, nostrils flared, eyes unblinking. He moved towards the animal. He could see it clearly now, sitting up among the barbed branches, nibbling on a large seed held between its paws. It was a mouse. Rusty rocked his haunches from side to side, preparing to leap. He held his breath in case his bell rang again. Excitement coursed through him, making his heart pound. This was even better than his dreams. Then suddenly a noise of cracking twigs, crunching and crunching leaves made him jump. His bell jangled treacherously. The mouse darted away into the thickest tangle of the bramble bush. Rusty stood very still and looked around. He could see the white tip of a red bushy tail trailing through the clump of tall ferns up ahead. He smelled strong, strange scent, definitely a meat eater, but neither cat nor dog. Distracted, Rusty forgot about the mouse and watched the red-tailed cock curiously. He wanted a better look. All of Rusty's senses strained ahead as he prowled forward. Then he detected another noise. It came from behind, but sounded muted and distant. He swiveled his ears backwards to hear it better. Paw steps, he wondered. But he kept his eyes fixed on the same strange red fur of the head and continued to creep onward. It was only then, when the faint rustling behind him became loud and fast approaching, leaf crackled, that Rusty realized he was in danger. The creature hit him with an explosion, and Rusty was thrown sideways into a clump of nettles. Twisting and yowling, he tried to throw off the attacker that had fastened itself on his back. It was gripping him with incredibly sharp claws. Rusty could feel spiked teeth pricking his neck. He writhed and squirmed from whisker to tail, but he couldn't free himself. For a second, he felt hopeless. Then he froze. Thinking fast, he flipped over onto his back. He knew instinctively how dangerous it was to expose his soft belly fur, but it was his only chance. He was lucky. The ploy seemed to work. He heard a "humph" beneath him as the breath was knocked out of his attacker. Thrashing fiercely, Rusty managed to wiggle free. Without looking back, he sprinted toward his home. Behind him, a rush of paw steps told Rusty the attacker was giving chase. Even though the pain of his scratches stung beneath his fur, Rusty decided he would rather turn and fight than let himself be jumped on again. He skidded to a stop, spun around, and faced his pursuer. It was another kitten, with a thick coat of shaggy gray fur, strong legs, and a broad face. In a heartbeat, Rusty smelled that it was a tom, and sensed the power of the sturdy shoulders underneath the soft coat. Then the kitten crashed into Rusty at full pelt. Taken by surprise by Rusty's turnabout, it fell backward into a dazed heap. The impact knocked the breath out of Rusty, and he staggered. He quickly found his footing and arched his back, puffing out his orange fur, ready to spring onto the other kitten. But the attacker simply sat up and began licking the forepaw, all signs of aggression gone. Rusty felt strangely disappointed. Every part of him was tense, ready for battle. "Hi there, kitty pet," meowed the gray tom cheerily. "You put up quite a fight for a tame kitty." Rusty remained on tiptoe for a second, wondering whether to attack anyway. Then he remembered the strength he had felt in the kitten's paws when he had pinned him to the ground. He dropped to his pads, loosening his muscles, and let his spine bend. "And I'll fight you again if I have to," he growled. "I'm Graypaw, by the way," the gray kitten went on, ignoring Rusty's threat. "I'm training to be a ThunderClan warrior." Rusty remained silent. He didn't understand what this gray what's-it was meowing about, but He sensed it was he sensed the threat had passed. He hid his confusion by leaning down to lick his ruffled chest. "What's a kitty pet like you doing out in the woods?" "Don't you know it's dangerous?" asked Gray Paw. "If you're the most dangerous thing in the woods it has to offer, then I think I can handle it," Rusty buffeted. Gray Paw looked up at him for a moment, narrowing his big yellow eyes. "Oh, I'm far from the most dangerous. If I were even half a warrior, I'd given an intruder like you some real wounds to think about." Rusty felt a thrill of fear and ominous words. What did this cat mean by intruder? "Anyway," meowed Gray Paw, using his sharp teeth to tug a clump of grass from between his claws, "I didn't think it was worth hurting you. You're obviously not from one of the other clans." "Other clans?" Rusty echoed, confused. Gray Paw let out an impatient hiss. "You must have heard of the four warrior clans. They hunt around here. I belong to ThunderClan. The other clans are always trying to steal prey from our territory, especially ShadowClan. They're so fierce they would have ripped you to shreds, no questions asked." Gray Paw paused to spit angrily and continued. "They come to take prey that is rightfully ours. It is our job of the ThunderClan warriors to keep them out of our territory. When I've finished my training, I'll be so dangerous I'll have the other clans shaking in their flea-bitten skins. They won't dare come near us then." Rusty narrowed his eyes. This must have been one of the wildcats Smudge was warning him about, living rough in the woods, hunting and fighting, each for every last scrap of food. Yet Rusty didn't feel scared. In fact, it was hard not to admire the confident kitten. "So you're not a warrior yet?" he asked. "Why, did you think I was?" Gray Paw purred proudly. Then he shook his wide furry head. "No, I won't be a real warrior for ages. I have to go through the training first. Kits have to be 6 moons old before they can even begin training. Tonight is my first night out as an apprentice. Why don't you find yourself an owner with a nice cozy house instead? Your life would be much easier," Rusty meowed. "There are plenty of housefolk who'd take in a kitten like you. All you have to do is sit where they can see you and look hungry for a couple of days." "And they'd feed me pellets that look like rabbit droppings and soft slop," Gray Paw interrupted. "No way! I can't think of anything worse than being a kitty pet. They're nothing but two-legged toys, eating stuff that doesn't look like food, making dirt in a box of gravel, sticking their noses outside when the two legs allow them. That's no life. Out here it's wild, and it's free. We come and we go as we please." He finished his speech with a proud spit, and then meowed mischievously. "Until you've tasted a fresh killed mouse, you haven't lived yet. Have you ever tasted mouse?" "No," Rusty admitted, a little defensively. "Not yet." I guess you'll never understand," Gray Paw sighed. "You aren't born wild. It makes a big difference. You need to be born with warrior blood in your veins to feel the wind in your whiskers. Kittens are born into two-legged nests that could never feel the same way." Rusty remembered the way he felt in his dream. "That's not true," he meowed indignantly. Gray Paw could not reply. He suddenly stiffened mid-lick, one paw raised, and sniffed the air. "I smell cats from my clan," he hissed. "You should go. They won't be pleased to find you hunting on our territory." Rusty looked around, wondering how Gray Paw knew any cats were approaching. He couldn't smell anything,